Hello everyone, welcome to Umbrella Thoughts, where we talk about all things you feel like you can't say out in the rain. I'm your host Brizen, and today marks the very first video of this channel. As it is the first episode, I think it'd be important for me to explain exactly what I'll be doing on this channel. I'll be discussing various deep topics while sharing my own personal experiences and things I've learned. Of course, I will not just be making videos where I talk about only myself. You guys will be able to submit your own questions anonymously, and I will talk about it for that episode. I will give my input and share my thoughts on that submitted topic or question. Of course, keep in mind, I am still learning and growing in life too. I am not a perfect person who has everything figured out right now. So if you are in serious need, please seek professional help, as I am not the person to help you. This channel will simply be an outlet for people to be vulnerable and share their thoughts and feelings to maybe discover a new perspective on their views, or find comfort knowing they aren't experiencing certain hardships alone, or even simply just vent. I will also occasionally have guests join me, so they can also give their input on the questions submitted by you guys, or even anything they want to discuss. By the time this video is made, I will probably have made a link for you guys to submit your questions, so feel free to do so right away. These questions don't have to be serious, they can be lighthearted too. With all of that in mind, I would like to start the series off with me talking about my time away from everything. More specifically, something I learned. It's not really that simple. I'll get to that soon. For those that don't know, my mental took a huge hit a while back, so I took some time to isolate myself from everyone and everything, just to be by myself. It was something I really needed to do because it's been years since I actually just sat down with myself and just, took some time to process and think and do some self-reflection. And I really needed to do that because I was at rock bottom. And that's not me saying that where I'd usually be dramatic or, emotional or anything like that. Like, I was seriously at rock bottom. And I meant that. Like, it felt like I was at this dead end in my life, and I just felt like I just couldn't do anything. I'm not gonna get too personal, but a lot of things did happen in my personal life, and it was just a lot for me to process. And I was just bottling these feelings and thoughts up, and it just started getting to a breaking point. And after some time, I just had to think and realize some things about myself, that I just had to admit some things to myself. Especially since whenever I had the chance or opportunity to self-reflect or just sit with myself to think or just process life, I would avoid doing that. Like, I would do everything in my power to just push that away, push that to the side, and just let it bottle up. I just, for some reason, just distracted myself constantly by playing games or watching YouTube videos and, bottling it all up. And I just wanted to keep my mind busy so I wouldn't have to think about it. Even when my friends would, reach out and, try to help me or just, want to support me in any way, I would avoid it. Even though there are some things that I really didn't want to admit to myself, I think I had to know why I felt so lost and understand, where all this, heavy weight came from. I had to admit that I was actually depressed. Along with me admitting that I was depressed, I think I started to realize other things too. That I wasn't just depressed, that I was actually angry too. But not in the type of anger that I expected. It was just a different sort of anger, like a quiet anger. Not like the outburst type of anger that you usually would that normally. It was just this burning, white hot burning anger that was just hurting me. And I realized that this came from the fact that I hated myself. I hated all these parts of myself. I hate who I am because of my mistakes and everything I did in the past. I hated myself because I was so obsessed with the past. And where that comes from is the fact that growing up, I was always forced to like, look into the future and like always worry about the future to the point where I never had the chance to enjoy my then present, which is now my past. And because of that, I started blaming so much of who I was. I think because of that, like, I was so obsessed with this future version of myself that was perfect. I wanted to be this person so bad that I started neglecting who I currently am. And I hated my flaws. I hated my mistakes. I hated like all these things that made me who I am because I just like kept blaming my past for that. I know there's that thing that people say, like, don't let your past define who you are, or forget about your past, or just move on from the past. But I really hate that, and it really like hurts me when people tell me that, because it's how am I supposed to just move on from something that affected me so heavily, you know? And it bothered me so much that I was like, no, like, I'm not letting my past define me though. Like, it just angers me that I'm like this because of my past. But I did. I did let it define me, and I did let it affect me in who I am today. It's because of that that I started like thinking. I eventually got lost in my thoughts, and I just didn't really know what to do to help myself. I was hating myself for so long without realizing that I don't know, like it was hard for me to even admit that I hated myself. That like no, like I didn't hate myself. I was like, I thought I was doing a good job, being me and trying to get to the person I wanted to be. But I think my mistake was that I was so obsessed with being this person, this future version of myself, that I completely neglected who I am currently. That I stopped taking care of my current self, that I just blamed it all on my current self. That like I stopped giving myself that care and love that I needed. And then that's when I started to really struggle with myself. I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really know what to do. And I don't know, like I was just in the state where I couldn't do anything. And then one day I was just browsing my YouTube page, and then just like the magic that the YouTube algorithm is, I stumble across this video. I'm gonna leave the link to the video down in the description. If I can remember the exact name of it, but I remember the thumbnail and title being something like you have to be yourself even if you hate it. And I remember seeing that and I was like, what the fuck? Like, no. Like, why would I want to be myself when I hate myself so much? And I had this mindset, like I was like angry about that. I was like, no, fuck myself. Like, what? And then I clicked on the video, and most of what he was saying was like going over my head, and I just didn't really care. But then there was one statement he said that like really hit me. And it wasn't like a truck, but it was like, in summertime when it's like really hot and someone with a hose sprays you with cold water. It was like that kind of hit me. He said, being yourself is a process. And when I heard that, I like sat in my chair and leaned back and just stared into my ceiling for like a long time. And I realized that I hated being myself because I never gave myself the chance to trust the process. I realized that I was thinking about it wrong. I thought it was something that just happens overnight. No, it is a process. It's something that takes time. It's not just a one and done type of thing, like, oh, you're just suddenly being yourself. But no, that's being yourself also is a process, a hard, excruciating process. I just had to think and, think about all these things that I realized about myself. That because I never, I never gave myself that, realization that it was a process, that I just hated who I was because I didn't think I'd ever change, because I never gave myself the chance to change. I just didn't know what to do. Like, I was so lost. I hated myself for so long that I started to ignore so many things about myself. That I ignored the kindness of close friends. That I was so drunk on this quiet anger that I just never paid attention to who I am currently and whether I was okay. Never bothered to check up on myself. And I think that it was, it was very bad for me. Being yourself may sound simple, but I think it's one of those things where you're told it when you're younger, right? Be yourself. But it holds so much more weight as you grow older that when you're told it at the time, you just think it's that simple, but really isn't. It's something you learn and gradually learn as you grow. And then I started to vocalize my feelings. And I think that helped me to better understand myself. Why am I neglecting myself? Why am I trying so hard to be this future version of myself? Why am I trying so hard to neglect myself for someone that doesn't even exist? I started to admit a lot of things to myself. Like, I am insecure. I am self-conscious. I am envious of people because of this and how amazing they are. And I just ended up blaming myself again for, like, how I couldn't, be the same. Started comparing myself. But I don't think that I ever needed to blame myself for anything. I never needed to stay angry at myself. I never needed to, just find something to vent these negative feelings to. When in reality, I just needed to forgive myself. And I think vocally admitting these things helped me to realize this, that I'm human. I make mistakes, and I really shouldn't let the past define me. I ended up letting the past define me without even knowing it. That's something that I realized and was like, fuck, I screwed up. Being yourself is a process that takes a long time, that will take your whole life. It'll take everyone their whole life to, be themselves. And I think being yourself has more meaning to that as well. Like, you're constantly growing. And if you grow and improve, then you become that new self. But you're still yourself. But I think in order to truly be ourselves, we have to look at who we are right now. We just have to look at ourselves, flaws and all, and say, this is my start. And accept that. It is hard. It's very hard to accept, but that's our start. I think I should start focusing on being a better person than I was yesterday and being able to be more vulnerable with myself. Being able to admit these things to myself instead of lying that that I'm not weak, that I'm not as fragile as I think I am. But it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay for me to admit that I wasn't a good person back then, that I wasn't really proud of who I was. I need to give myself that chance. And then suddenly I started finding myself, taking better care of myself, like actually, trying to sleep better, eat healthier. And something that I did, I actually, I shaved all my hair off. That sounds crazy, but I did do that a while ago, but I did it again. But I did it recently, after this realization, because I thought it was like a good metaphor for fresh start, accepting myself and being me. And I think I'm okay with knowing that there is no finish line to being yourself. All we need to do is step on that start line. But of course, I think the hardest part is finding that start line. It can, can be rough for some people or even easy for other people. But that's okay, because we all live our lives at our own pace and we all figure out who we are at different times in our lives. And I hope that I can continue being someone I can be proud of. And in time, I think I'll be able to love myself. My flaws are what makes me me, including my past and including who I am today. But I can say that I am able to look at myself and say, yeah, I am okay. So I'll just be myself. Because part of the process is falling, and that's okay. And who knows? Maybe at some point I'll eventually become that future version of myself that I always wanted to be. But I'm not too worried about that anymore. Because I don't want to be worried about when I'll become that person, or even if I will be. Because I think if I continue to take better care of myself, I'll end up being someone even better than that.